Howdy, 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 my name is Anachi Sasuke. Welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the last episode, we went through the salesman who was too good to be true, the butler's handbell, the living water filter, the floor to nowhere, and the garbage man. In this episode, we're going to be doing the Spirit Lodge, the Fairy Kudzu, the 13-inch chef's knife, a didactic perspective, and a family of cotton. Much like the last episode, some of these things sound ominous, starting with 666, so let's see what the Spirit Lodge is. It's Euclid, SCP-666, and Dr. Kront, circa redacted. SCP-666 is to be stored in a monitored closed vault at all times at Site-73 in the Tibetan Mountains. Guards are to be changed weekly, must pass a background check before being assigned to their post, and proven free of drug and alcohol addiction. It is to only be entered by D-Class personnel and approved testing procedures, or by approved Foundation researchers with level 4 or higher security clearance. Non-disposable dudes who enter the SCP, whether or not they have revealed a prior history of addiction, must be observed by a guard at all times. If they show any signs of being affected by it, they are to be removed immediately. I'm saying it because I feel like I shouldn't say 666 too many times, other than it being a tongue twister reasons. The SCP is a medium-sized Tibetan yurt, made of tied wooden branches and covered in yak leather. The interior ceiling is 8 feet high and the base of the yurt is 30 feet. The hut is circular in shape. The interior of the yurt has a dirt floor and appears that rhymes. And appears to be as crude as the outside to the majority of the observers. The branches that make up the yurt frame are wrapped in rabbit fur, and the yurt dirt, herpadur, that was supposed to be the Swedish chef from Muppet Show, sorry. And tied with yak leather thongs. Periodically, the SCP will change its location within the confinement area. This will only happen when not under direct observation, but remote viewing gives the impression of an entity inside the structure, lifting it wholly and moving to its new position. To date, it has not made any attempt to escape confinement. It was discovered in 1973 by SCP operatives searching the mountain regions on reports of several missing persons having returned from the area, giving similar explanations. Seeking shelter during harsh weather, the individuals would happen upon 666 by seeming happenstance. Having gone out in similar conditions, the exploration team was also able to discover the yurt. Of the 3 operatives present, 2 experienced no ill effects. The third entered a stupor, experiencing vivid hallucinations and muttering incoherently to himself. Upon retrieval of the team, the yurt was recovered and taken to nearby Site-73 for further investigation. When an individual with no history of significant addictions enters the yurt, it remains dormant and it seems to have no ill effects. Disposable dudes without a history of alcohol or narcotics abuse were able to sit inside the yurt for days at a time and provided proper nourishment, and did report a greater intensity in their dreams. Individuals who do have a history of substance abuse, however, will experience a hallucinogenic effect while inside the structure. In all instances, the subjects report being in a location either from their memories or a corollary thereof, specifically a spot where their addiction was at its most intense. Thus far, there have been reports of a nightclub bathroom, a 1973 Volkswagen Vanagon, a filthy alleyway, the redacted casino in Las Vegas, etc. One subject reported finding himself in a dirty apartment with a prostitute named Chloe, with whom he frequently indulged in narcotics abuse. Another reported being in his own bedroom with a computer setup significantly more intricate than he owned before his arrest for distribution of child pornography. During these hallucinations, subjects report that they are confined by an individual here referred to as, let's just call him Yurt 1. Descriptions of Yurt 1 vary widely from person to person, with no commonality to race, gender, or appearance beyond being typical for the surroundings. Yurt 1 will indulge the subject in their personal addictions, although at the start, it will have a passive-aggressive attitude. As time progresses, the subject is encouraged to indulge further while simultaneously being encouraged to stop. Should the subject show remorse or a strong desire to give up their addiction, Yurt 1 will slowly adopt a more genuinely friendly tone and continue the temptation with discouragement hallucinations. Approximately 94% of the subjects who have gone through this form of hallucination to their end have been diagnosed as having a near complete removal of psychological addictions, though physical symptoms will persist through a natural withdrawal cycle. If the subject gives in to Yurt 1's temptations, the entity becomes increasingly hostile. There is no set timetable nor degree of indulgence, but if left unchecked, Yurt 1 will invariably begin assaulting the subject and forcing the subject's vice upon them to levels of extreme overdose. If the subject is not forcibly removed from the yurt during this period, they will die. Cause of death is typical of their addiction, whereby an alcoholic will suffer extreme kidney or liver failure, a cocaine user will develop cardiac dysrhythmia, a subject addicted to video games or television will suffer extreme muscular atrophy and health issues associated with a sedentary lifestyle, etc. To date, there have been no clear connection between those who will or will not succumb to Yurt 1. The working hypothesis is that it's simply a matter of the individual's willpower and conviction. All attempts to interview Yurt 1 directly have failed, with the entity either redirecting the conversation or bluntly refusing to answer. The only statement that reveals anything to its nature was a single instance of, "We're not important here, this is all about you." This indicates that there are either multiple entities attached to the Yurt, or there are additional instances of the Yurt in the world. Investigation is ongoing as to whether similar stories have arisen. Should another instance of the Yurt be discovered, it is to be immediately transferred to Site-73. Addendum 1. Nearly identical stories have recently arisen in remote areas of northern Canada describing a Wendigo hut. While unconfirmed, these similarities point to at least one additional instance of a Yurt at large. Interview log with test subject Disposable Dude 14390 regarding experiences in the Yurt. Audio only. So is it going to play audio? I guess it's not going to play audio, it's just going to have words. Subject Disposable Dude, how are you feeling? Not bad, Doc, not bad. Kinda want to take another nap in the tent. Well, that's what we're here to talk about. Please describe your experience inside of SCP-666. No sweat there, Doc. See, I just stroll in, like you said, have myself a seat. Next thing I know, I'm in this hole in the wall back home and redacted with this sweet bitch Chloe. Chloe? Oh yeah, she was pricey and she wasn't the best looking trick south of Kennedy, but she had some connections. Never did meet up with her once that we weren't getting high. Note, Chloe was the working name of the prostitute that Disposable Dude was with at the time of his arrest. Very well. Please describe the scenario for me. I don't know why I decided that Dr. L is a woman. That just sort of happened. Dr. Lannis. I have no idea why I decided that. Well, it was her apartment, right? Kinda dingy. A little messy, like she hadn't cleaned up in a couple of weeks, but I wasn't there for the scenery, you know? So I dropped my cash on the living room table and we head into the bedroom. I shoot up with her, use my own needle of course, and then we get freaky. I mean, we did everything under the sun and a couple that never saw the light of day. She knew positions I never did and had drugs I'd never even heard of. Halfway through I needed a pick-me-up, so I stored a couple lines of Colombian all for acid. I think that's enough, D14390. For the sake of brevity, please keep the rest of your testimony in regards to the anomalous entity 66061. What now? The person who tempted you in your hallucination. Oh, right. Well, it's around the time that she was offering me this opium shit that she got off of a Chinaman. The whole time she'd been saying stuff in kind of funny way, like those, whatchamacallem, backface comments? Backhanded compliment. That's the stuff. Well, I started taking a couple pulls off the opium and I'm feeling mellow, but she's just glaring at me, right? So I ask what's up and she hauls off and punches me in the face. Not like this fragile little crack whore would either. I mean, I thought I was going 10 with Tyson right about now. Starts screaming at me, calling me weak and pathetic, just giving in, you know, bitch shit. So I kick her in the chest, and that's when shit got weird. Next thing I know, she's got me on the ground and her arms are around my throat, her eyes get huge and bloodshot and shit, fingernails digging into the sides of my neck, and hand to God, Doc, she was shooting shit into me. You're saying that 666-1 was injecting you with heroin from her nails? Not sure what it was, but it burned and felt good at the same time, and they weren't nails no more, it was like big cat claws, right? And she's still yelling at me, but her mouth's getting bigger and bigger, like her jaw's stretching out, and her teeth keep getting sharper and bigger, like she's ready to eat my head. Even as blasted as I was, that was some freaky shit. I started screaming. And that was when the guards pulled you out of the tent. Yeah, it seems I wasn't just freaking out in the dream. Weird shit it was. About, like, 5 seconds after I get pulled out, I hear Chloe's voice again, but it's all low and growling. It sounded like she said, "You can't stop." Thank you, D14390. I just have one last question. After all this, you said you wanted to go back in. Why? Well, it's simple, right? She was scary and all, but man, I've never been that high in my life. And with the shit that goes on in this place, I figure I'm not long for the world anyway, so I might as well go out with a smile, right? Following the interview, they repeatedly volunteered for additional testing with 666. Dr. Landis finally relented, began screaming approximately 3 seconds after entering the hallucinatory state and expired from cardiac arrest less than 1 minute later. Alright. Wendigo. Didn't Wendigo, wasn't there already a Wendigo SCP? Did we already do that one? Or did I read that on my own time and forget about it? Anyway, now it's time for the Fairy Kudzu, whatever that is. How is it that the happy sounding things are the keter ones? Why is it always the happy sounding things? Jeez, man, The primary sample of SCP-667-1 is to be trimmed to an area of 0.5 square kilometers and maintained regularly to prevent it from expanding outside its current habitat. The perimeter of one's habitat is to be cleared of vegetation in a 30-meter radius, and fenced to prevent unauthorized access. Any region within a 3-kilometer radius of the habitat is to be designated off-limits to civilian hikers or recreationists to prevent contact with 2. Surveillance personnel are authorized to employ pesticides or fire to neutralize any instances of 2 attempting to exit the containment zone. During periods when 2 is observed to be active, maintenance personnel are to withdraw from the habitat. An individual adult mammal or an individual D-class awaiting scheduled termination is to be introduced into the habitat after being tagged with a radio tracking or GPS device. D-class personnel may be issued audio or video equipment at project manager discretion. Feeding is to continue at a rate of 1 individual per day until 2 becomes inactive. Additional samples of 1 may be produced from cuttings and grown within prescribed limits in a fully contained area at O5 discretion. All attempts to capture a live sample of 2 are currently prohibited pending development of a means to counteract its mind-affecting properties. Any 2 remains recovered are to be transferred to Site 73 for necropsy, analysis, and archival. Description: SCP-667 is a symbiotic pairing consisting of a colony of flowering vines of an unclassified species morphologically similar to Kudzu, designated SCP-667-1, and an unclassified species of flying creatures possessing insectoid and humanoid morphological qualities, designated SCP-667-2. The only known instance of 667 in the world is located in a wilderness area of the southeastern United States, approximately blank kilometers north of blank blank, and covered an area of blank square kilometers prior to being trimmed to its current size. Forensic analysis of skeletal remains found within 1 indicated that it was introduced to the region shortly after the introduction of Kudzu to the United States in the late 19th century. In the presence of adequate nutrition, 1 is capable of growing at a rate considerably greater than that of the standard Kudzu plant. Samples in captivity under ideal conditions have been observed to grow as rapidly as 2.5 meters per day. 1 is capable of planting roots in almost any form of soil or soft organic tissue and will grow along or over the surface of any foreign matter in the path of its growth, including trees, structures, automobiles, or animal life. 1's primary source of nutrition is derived from humans or other large mammals. Upon encountering a sleeping, paralyzed, or dead animal within its path of growth, 1 will rapidly grow around and through the creature, gradually consuming and metabolizing its remains to further its growth. 1's vines, flowers, roots contain large quantities of alkaline compounds which render it unpalatable to human beings and all other animal species, besides 2, on which it has been tested. Mature 2 organisms are approximately 7.5 centimeters in length, with 2 large wings extending the entire length of the organism. Dissection indicates that 2's internal biology is similar to that of insects of the family Lampyridae fireflies. 2's exoskeleton strongly resembles a miniaturized human being, with the organism's thorax being contained within the chest cavity and the abdomen and a bioluminescent organ concealed within the legs. Male and female 2 organisms have been recovered. Female 2 organisms reproduce by laying eggs, which hatch as larvae, burrowing into the soils underneath 1, and emerging as mature insects the following year. The current wild population of mature 2 organisms at any given time is estimated to be less than 5,000. As many as blank are believed to have existed prior to trimming. Mature 2 organisms dwell exclusively on, underneath, and around 1, and subsist by feeding on the nectar produced by 1's flowers. When 1's growth begins to slow due to deficiencies in its food supply, swarms of several hundred 2 organisms separate from the main colony will travel outward until encountering any medium to large-sized mammal in the area. 2 swarms are almost always active only during nighttime hours and are bioluminescent, producing a highly visible green glow throughout the entire organism. All human beings directly observing a 2 swarm have described a strong hypnotic effect and a compulsion to follow the swarm, which inevitably results in the swarm leading the mesmerized human to the edge of 1's current path of growth. Non-human mammals have similarly displayed a compulsion to follow the swarm in obliviousness to outside stimuli. Upon reaching the edge of 1, the mesmerized individual will sit or stand still and continue to observe the swarm until dying of thirst, exposure, or as the result of being engulfed by 1. At the time of trimming, skeletal remains of approximately blank, distinctly identifiable mammals, including blank humans, were recovered from the cleared area. SCP-667 came to the Foundation's attention in 2000 blank, following a dramatic increase of missing persons within a redacted wilderness area in the state of blank. United States Forest service officials identified one as the cause of the missing persons, and upon the loss of several personnel to two swarms, contacted the Foundation's liaison within the Department of Agriculture, leading to the establishment of Foundation containment over the area. At the time of discovery, one had become highly invasive and its growth was projected to reach the outskirts of the city of Redacted within less than a decade. Approximately 90% of one was destroyed by incineration, under pretense of a forest fire, in order to reduce the colony's size to a manageable level. Examination of the region indicates that almost all of one's growth had occurred within the past 20 years. The Foundation's current working hypothesis is that 2 was introduced to the region within that time, and that the development of a symbiotic relationship between itself and 1 allowed it to begin expanding outwards at a significantly greater rate than it had previously. So it sounds like the fairies and the Kudzu are not necessarily the same thing? It sounds like it became an SCP because the Kudzu was expanding super quick and the fairies are helping. So it sounds like the main SCP is the Kudzus and the fairies just sort of are there. Also, let's find out what a Kudzu is, because I have no idea what a Kudzu is. What's a Kudzu? This didn't help. Wait, so are Kudzu the plants that just cover trees? Is that what those are? Because if that's the case, I think I've got Kudzus in my backyard. The last time I had something suspiciously that looked suspicious like an SCP, I started not being able to breathe through my nose every time I record these. Anyway, 13-inch chef knife. At least I think that's inches. Revised! As of data expunged, no special containment procedures aside from standard security are required. 668 is to be transferred to a locked safe deposit box at Site 19's high-value item storage facility. Standard defenses against intrusion, explosive, chemical, biological, mimetic, are to be in place at all times, according to standard operating procedure. SCP-668 may only be removed from its safe deposit box by personnel with security clearance 2 or higher. Individuals wishing to make use of it outside of Site 19 must first submit a Forms 668 requested course of action form to 0511 and be fitted with an explosive kill switch collar on a 24-hour timer before taking 668 into the field. An auditing officer with security clearance 4 or higher must confirm that 668 has been returned to a safe deposit box before the collar is deactivated. So, 668 is a 13-inch chef's knife with a rosewood handle and full tang construction, crafted at some point from the 1930s to the early 1940s. It's a pretty nice knife. When first acquired by field operatives, it was in badly rusted condition with heavy pitting from bloodstains and other bodily fluids trapped in micro crevices within the blade. Following thorough analysis, these irregularities were removed for aesthetic purposes. This has had negligible, if any, effect on its special properties. The first recorded appearance of 668 was in the 1960s during the infamous Data Expunged case. Data Expunged, a New York woman living alone, was allegedly raped and murdered by subject Data Expunged. Despite the fact that 38 witnesses reported hearing of the attack, none of them attempted to aid the young woman for over 6 hours until her eventual death. Whether the item received its properties due to this event or whether it had them beforehand is a matter of debate. See Dr. Redacted's paper regarding the bystander effect versus Dr. Redacted's theory regarding psychic imprintation. What is clear, however, is its current properties. When carried by a human or humanoid entity with violent intent towards another human or humanoid entity, 668 broadcasts a psychic signal that renders all sentient beings with a psionic resistance index of 97 or lower incapable of assisting the victim. Affected entities report a sudden sense of apathy while under 668's influence. Sensory input is not affected, and affected entities report feeling revulsion and horror, but are simply incapable of acting, even indirectly, to assist the victim. Meanwhile, it renders the victim incapable of defending themselves against their attacker. Tests using disposable dudes have shown no upper limit in the number of entities affected by the psychic resonance. In one test, 12 disposable dudes due for the first of the month termination were placed in a room alongside a researcher who was told to randomly select one test subject for death. The researcher killed all test subjects one by one despite their professed horror. Prior incidents have indicated the possibility of hundreds if not thousands of deaths due to 668's unique properties. See Incident Report 668A. Is it in here or is it its own thing? It's its own thing. I'll open it and see how long it is. Regarding Redacted Mall Massacre and subsequent information blackout operations. How long is it? Doesn't seem super long, but it also doesn't seem super necessary. Recovery of 668 in such scenarios is problematic due to the item's psychic properties. Agents attempting to apprehend the subject during containment failure incidents are often themselves affected by its so-called apathy field, resulting in casualties among Foundation personnel. Following Incident A, standard retrieval protocol includes the use of a long-range sniper rifle, double-blind conditions, and 3 different agents working in tandem through carefully coordinated actions to prevent any of them realizing that they are actively opposing the subject. Because of the obvious apocalyptic possibilities, it is the recommendation of this panel that 668 be designated a key level threat and placed in a high-level confinement. Addendum A. Following further testing, it has been determined that test subjects wielding 668 can be terminated through passive response, so long as the terminating agent is introduced before the subject takes possession of 668. The Running Man Protocol, see Appendix B, approved terminating agents, is hereby approved for use with 668. The item in question is hereby reclassified as a Euclid-type object. And it used to say, B, use of Omega 7 personnel for retrieval of 668 during future containment failure incidents is to be hereby forbidden due to the danger of Abel coming into contact with the item. B is revoked as of data expunged due to Abel's expressed distaste of using an item that, in its own words, takes all the fun out. Possibility of using Abel as a solo agent for future containment failure incidents is under review. With the ending of the Omega 7 project, no further attempts to weaponize Abel or 668 are to be attempted. Addendum C, it used to say, do not under any circumstances allow 668 to come into contact with the hard-to-kill lizard. Note that although the average human beings have a psionic resistance index of 24, the hard-to-kill lizard has been tested with a psi-rai of redacted, placing it above 668's threshold of effect. The possibilities of a creature amicable to all life gaining possession of something like this should be obvious. With the ending of the Omega 7 project, no further attempts to weaponize 682 or 668 are to be attempted. Addendum D. Request to reclassify under its original designation as a Keter class object under review. Request to reclassify under its original designation as a Keter class object denied. Will remain at Euclid. And the incident report. Let's see now. Yeah, it seems important, but at the same time, it doesn't seem important enough to actually read it. So, that brings us to a didactic perspective, which is safe. It looks like an orb of some kind, but it's inactive. SCP-669 is to be kept, it used to say, in a lead line safety deposit on Site 19. They crossed that out for some reason. Now it just says is to be kept on Site 19. Any personnel to be granted access to 669 must have completed a training session led by an individual with a Level 2 669 clearance. Following Incident 1, it is to be encased in a Faraday cage vessel consisting of a grounded copper shell and slotted alumina inserts holding the item in place. It is to be removed from the containment vessel only in designated testing area so as to not interfere with Site 19 electronics. Alright. 669 is a sphere of radius 2.6 centimeters resembling a large berry. When inactive, it weighs approximately 560 grams. The surface contains numerous signs of corrosion and pitting, as well as the remains of a cadmium blue paint. The surface temperature of 669 appears to vary between 31.1 or 32.1 and 33.8 degrees Celsius. This appears independent on the temperature and thermal conductivity of its surroundings. The composition of 669 is currently unknown. The surface of 669 indicates that its composition to be mild carbon steel, however its density as well as its inertia testing data suggests a non-uniform internal structure. It activates when placed within 54 centimeters of any object larger than itself and set into motion. While active, it appears to lack gravitational mass. Instead, it describes an orbit around the object at one of a set of distances up to 54 centimeters from the object's surface. What's it say? It always orbits at least one of a set of 4 to 9 discrete distances located in the range of 0 centimeters to 54. However, the precise values vary with every activation. Collisions with an object larger than itself cause it to relocate into orbit around the colliding object. If exposed to a suitable light source of sufficient brightness, experiment log 669, it proceeds to move into next further orbit. If no such orbit exists, it will either deactivate or proceed to fly at a tangent to its original orbit until colliding with another suitable object. Pushing it into an orbit closer to an object it orbits requires a force of approximately 50 newtons, and is accompanied by a brief photo emission of seemingly random frequency from 669's surface. Recovery log. It was recovered from a depository of Istanbul Modern Art Museum in April 4th, 1950-something, having been previously exposed in the annual Current Eastern European Sculpture Retrospective as part of an exhibit titled Rutherfordian Atom, a Didactic Perspective. Visual records recorded indicate that the exhibit contained blank further instances of 669 as well as an agglomeration of at least blank similar objects, none of which were recovered. It was not listed as in that exhibition's catalog, and neither its purported artist, 1GP, nor Lomonosov Makarenko Institute for Scientific and Political Education appear to figure in any official records. Incident 1. A blank 1960 something during the course of an experiment led by researcher Arnold Scheiner, The 669 deactivated after a minor collision. Within 15 seconds of reactivation, it suddenly developed an electric field sufficient to strip electrons from objects within a radius of approximately half a meter, resulting in the death of researcher Shiner and extensive damage to electronic devices in the laboratory and adjacent areas. Containment procedures updated. So, it says it strips electrons and it stripped them from the researcher. That's probably bait. I imagine he just sort of ceased to exist. And now for a family of cotton. If it had been Keter, I swear I was gonna be upset. The family unit collectively referred to as 670 is currently contained at Sector 25, located in blank England. Members of 670 are to be contained in a shared 12 by 6 meter holding cell observed via surveillance camera. Are they like balls of cotton or are they dolls? Cell is to contain 4 beds, a bathroom, and an observation window. All staff entering 670's containment area to be searched for lighters, matches, and other sources of open flame. 670 is to be provided with 45 centimeters of cotton, 25 centimeters of silk, 25 centimeters of polyester, 15 centimeters of rayon, and 12 centimeters of rope each month. Any objects created by members of 670 that could be used as a weapon are to be immediately removed from the containment area. SCP-670 is comprised of 4 roughly humanoid individuals, 1, 2, 3, and 4, who refer to themselves collectively as the Cotton Family. 1 and 2 appear to be the father and mother of the family, judging by their height and comments made in interviews, while 3 and 4 are the children of the family. Members of 670 possess a thin outer layer of hard clay skin, showing signs of deterioration from over a long length of time. Under this, the organs, flesh, and nervous system are composed entirely of different types of thread. The majority of the thread is used as cotton, but large amounts of silk and polyester are also present. Small amounts of rayon and nylon are also noted in the internal organs. The skeleton is composed of rope knotted into a suitable shape, and the fingers of 670 members seem to be rusted sewing needles. These sound like the things from that movie 9. Members of 670 have demonstrated an advanced aptitude for the use of thread, using their fingers to create extremely complicated objects such as suitable eating implements and seating in a short amount of time. Notable objects created by members of 670 include a bicycle, a functional bicycle, a non-functional TV, a functional clock, a roast chicken, a detailed family portrait, and a dagger. See Interview 1-1. Members of 670 show discomfort when using objects not composed of thread, such as plastic chairs or writing implements. The reason for this is currently unknown, and members of 670 refuse to elaborate on it. They were first discovered at Blank Forest, near Blank, when a group of hikers reported that they had found a house made of rope in the forest. Agents were dispatched to investigate the matter and discovered 670. The hikers were dosed with Class A amnestics, and 670 was brought into containment without incidents. What are they normal sized? Are they like normal sized people made of cotton? No, Interview 1-1. Alright, approximately blank on blank 1000 something, 1 constructed a dagger using 670's monthly thread ration. The dagger was immediately confiscated and 1 brought in for questioning. 1 brought in by security. Hello, 1. Please have a seat. Looks down at seat. Do you have any other chairs? I'm afraid not. Can I stand? No. Sits down. So, what's this about? I understand you made a dagger earlier today. What did you intend to do with it? Seems confused at this point. I don't see what... Oh! Oh my goodness, no! I'm not a violent man, sir! I see. However, if you didn't intend to escape, what was it for? Rodents, sir. I'm sorry? Well, I've been hearing squeaking the last few nights, and I thought I should try and get rid of the rats. They spread disease, you know. Alright, well, while you're here, 1, I'd like to ask you a few questions. I'll try my best, sir. Can you please tell me where and when you were born? Blank 1800 something, sir. Do you have any relatives? Yes, sir, my 2 children, Alfie and Elizabeth. I mean parents. Oh, you mean Granddad Cotton. Can you tell me more about Granddad Cotton, SCP-671? Well, he was a clever guy, good with his hands, gestures at himself, as you can see. Don't really remember much about him. He died a while back. Great guy, though. Well, can you tell me how you met your wife? Appears uncomfortable. I don't quite remember that, sir. It was a long time ago. Well, that's all for now, 1. Please return to your containment area. We won't tolerate weapons again. Sorry, sir. 1 was returned to containment area and is currently under heightened surveillance. Incident 1. Okay, members of 670 are consuming a polyester steak. 3's eating implement slip out of its hands. 3 suffers a small laceration on its left leg and attempts to conceal it. Other members do not notice the laceration. They are conversing while seated. 3 stands to get up, but stumbles, revealing its injury. They quickly approach. 1 and 4 restrain 3. 2 begins to carefully remove outer clay layer from 1. 3 vocalize distress at this point and continues to do so until 8:19. Outer layer is completely removed. A stitched together inner layer of red cotton is visible. 2 begins to unstitch this inner layer. 2 deposits unstitched cotton thread on the cell floor. Inner workings of 3 are now visible, including the heart and lungs. 2 begins unstitching the lungs. 2 deposits unstitched polyester thread from the lungs next to the cotton thread. 3's attempts to escape become less violent. 2 begins unstitching the heart. 2 deposits unstitched nylon and polyester from the heart. 3 ceases movement and vocalization at this point, presumed dead. Nervous system, brain, and skeleton are now visible. 2 has unstitched the brain and central nervous system, begins untying the skeleton. Skeleton is tied and placed next to the other disassembled materials of 3. 1 approaches the observation window and requests identical materials to those currently on the cell floor. Request accepted. Requested materials are brought in by 2 disposable dudes. 2 requests that the clay skin is not removed, but other materials are delivered without incident. Materials are that comprise 3 are retrieved for further study. 2 begins creating an identical copy of 3 from the delivered materials. Clay skin is applied. Copy of 3 is completed. 1 refers to it as Alfie Cotton. 270 retires to their beds. Retrieved materials contain no anomalous properties, but study is ongoing. I don't understand why did their child getting a leg injury necessitate stripping it apart and building a new one? I don't understand. I will never understand, because none of these things get explained. They get talked about on TV tropes, and that's about it. So, this has been Anachi Sasuke. This is episode 143 of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. In the next episode, we'll be reading Deconstructing Ants, Rock Coral Tissues, the Exposition Gun, and Shadows Through the Window. If you liked it, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you don't need to do either one of those things, and I will see y'all in the next one. Later!